I do remember like imagining where we're gonna end up or like what life was gonna be. I had no clue sacrifices we're gonna have to make. Every day was gonna take work, and every day was gonna take a thought process to make sure that I was gonna be a different person.
Well, you're alone now at that point. It's time to make some adjustments. Episode 3.
The baby and the Bentley were crazy and caused some real problems for the brothers. But it was the third B, the billboards, that completely turned up what their lives were about to look like in prison. The twins had been together since day one. People even called them just twin. For 28 years, every decision they made it together. And now they were both alone. For the first time in their lives, they didn't have each other to rely on.
The billboards meant their special privilege of being housed together in prison was taken away. Jay was blamed and pulled from his cell in the middle of the night. He was put on a plane to the notoriously inhumane MCC New York. The conditions there are so bad that in 2021 it had to be shut down. Over 2 years later, it remains that way, whilst the government figures out what to do with it.
So MCC New York was, to us, was the worst place because it was a Woodstock unit in the MCC, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, which is where they house Chapo, Epstein, and they house them in the segregated unit, and on the 3rd floor is where they kept, Woodstock. It's a special unit for cooperators. And it's the worst thing.
The worst thing, probably the feeling of knowing you in the building with Buddy. In the same building and shit. Dude's a couple floors beneath you, fuming. Talking about I'd kill those twins if I had the opportunity.
It was like a really intense watch on you, on your mail, on anything, because it's 14, 16 cells. There's probably 14 inmates, all the troublemakers. The worst of the worst. That's your last spot. Either it's your last spot before you get kicked out the program, or if you're going there to go to court to testify, that's where you go. And it's the worst place. They let you out to rooftop maybe once a week for an hour. This is the worst part, that the food is cooked by the inmates in the building. They know that unit's for cooperators. So every time they send the food trays up, they come with a little special surprise. I'm talking about every time. If it's gonna be a dead rat, roaches, who knows what they do to the food. And I actually never ate their food now.
Somebody put like the nasty, spoon through the macaroni sound in the background.
One time, I survived off of peanut butter and noodles. At my worst luck, I didn't have a phone. They had took my privileges away. I didn't have my brother. For me, it was probably the hardest time I had gone through since I had been in prison. No communication, no visits. Being in this place, being without my brother, being like just lost, and not knowing why.
Not knowing why what?
Jay was struggling, not just because he was without...
What you mean not knowing why? Billboards. You knew why when you drove past the joint. Billboards and babies and Bentleys.
Jay was struggling, not just because he was without Pete, but in MCC New York, communication was limited, so he wasn't able to see his family. Val could tell how badly Jay was struggling and did everything she could to get Jay moved.
I ended up staying there 8 months, and I would say thank you to my wife. Like, when she found that I was there, she knew about the place, and we would write each other letters. Like, she fought for me. She went hired an attorney because they were not budgeting, until finally the head of the people who are handling us happened to do a routine visit to the unit. and they come and they see you. They're the head of people who actually handle witness protection. You could talk to them, express your concern, just, you know. And I said, hey, like, you know, why am I here? Like, you put me here with the worst of the worst.
Billboard.
Like, you know what you did? I'm like, what did I do?
You put up a big-ass billboard. You laughed in their face. Let me tell you something. Those COs, they don't get to put a billboard up for the wife that they come home to after a long day of you know, throwing piss at them. They don't get to put up a billboard. You know what I'm saying? The superior of those feds that put you in there, that was collecting your money, right? That was there to make an inventory of what your life was. They don't get to put up a billboard. They looking like, wait, where they getting this money for billboards and shit? Ain't we supposed to be getting paid? But according to them, sometimes they let them have the money. Just like Val said, 200 grand or whatever, or it was $250,000. And they worked out a deal with the Lamborghini guy that robbed them. And supposedly they let her keep the 250. So that's billboard money. But again, they don't like it rubbed in their face, papas. That's why your ass in New York, lonely, eating rash.
Like, no, I don't know what you did, sir. Like, listen, it doesn't even matter. One of the other guys tried to kick me out the meeting. I'm like, listen, man, I waited for a long time for this. Tell me what I did, you know, and if I did it, you know, I'll be honest, but how am I supposed to know what I did and why I'm here? So he's like...
According to him, according to Jay himself in the last episode, as they was driving down the highway, in the distance, before he even realized what it was all about, he realized what it was all about. He peeped the billboards from a distance so that when they did pass him, he even said that the CO looked at him and he didn't even look at the billboards because he knew. You knew exactly why. Why are you asking all these questions?
You want to tell me about your billboards?
There you go.
I was like, billboards? Heck yeah. You want to tell me about the billboard you put up on the side of the road, on the side of the road for your wife? I said, yeah, sure. You just got the wrong one. He said, what?
Yo, you ratting out your brother, though. Like, ain't no wrong one. If y'all always been one from the beginning and they called y'all twin, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no wrong one, dog. If they're going to send one to New York, they're going to send the other to New York. It don't matter. They flip a coin. You just happen to be the one that got dropped off in New York. So, you basically ratting your brother out.
So you got the wrong one. And he looked at him and he like, what? I'm like, you got the wrong one. I know that it was a billboard, sir, but that was my brother.
So what the fuck is that all about?
So I had a fight for 8 months. I mean, Val and I fought every day to get out that place. I was miserable. You know, Val would come see me sometimes for 40 minutes at times. And we had...
Finally a little discomfort and shit, and you trying to send Buddy to New York. Get my brother. Get him over here. Bring him here from New York. Like, dude, take the hit. Y'all played them billboard games together. That's some shit.
And we had problems.
The country with the kids, and the kids were small. Yeah.
I did have a little advantage that you could only see out the window in front of the courthouse. It's right across from the courthouse. And one time, Val brought the kids, and my son, he loved baseball. Then Val actually brought the bases and the t-ball. And she got all the kids, and they had a baseball game while I looked at the window.
Bruh, listen, at the end of the day, you gotta give her that. That motherfucking Val went the extra mile on a regular basis. Shit. She's having full-on Little League games outside the joint for this dude. He's crying about it. Trying to get his brother sent to New York, so it's harder on them. Like, it happened like that. It's how it happened. Yeah, they got you, but for his billboards, you know what I'm saying? But how you didn't know that they wasn't going to get him for your baby? You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all pick and choose. That's the ongoing theme of this whole shit. Y'all pick and choose.
You know, he's funny. He would see catchers. You know how they take their mask off to see where the ball, when they have a high fly ball? Well, in his head, that every time he hit the ball or something, he had knock his cap off and run. He's a baby. He's 2 years old, 2.5 years old. And I got to see that. I would look out the window and there'd be sometimes where I used to sit on that window, just see or just look outside. I'm like, I don't do anything to just be able to see Val. And one of those times, I was looking at the window. It was like kind of, sun was setting, and I'm looking down the street, and I see I see hips. And I'll never forget her. She's walking. She's pulling her suitcase.
Rest of the joint ain't gonna forget her either. They all saw it.
Just happened to stop by just to see it. I'm looking out the window. Like on a weekday. And she comes to the window and she's like blowing me kisses, and it hurt me so much. Like not to be able to talk to her, not to be able to say anything. And I felt close even though I was like there. I just, no communication, that I decided to make signs. So the next time she ever came, I could just show her with signs, I made signs like, I love you. Be careful. Like different signs I had. I'm like,
yo, you didn't learn your lessons about the signs, bro. Y'all still wanna, I guess love is love, right? And who needs it more than a motherfucker in jail? But a billboard is what got you in New York, MCC, and you making signs and shit. You didn't learn your lesson.
With paint, a bunch of different signs. Like, where are the kids? Or tell the kids I love them. And I would put them on the window. And it was hard. It was a hard time. That suffering, it led me to be in a place where I was able to do the rest of my time comfortable.
Maybe that's what they needed. They needed to be separated. The brothers needed to be separated and fend for themselves at some point.
The upside of the mix-up was that Jay was able to pick any prison he wanted to go to after the horrors of MCC New York.
They said, where do you want to go? People will come in from different places, and I ask them, hey, how is this place? And they're like, they'll say this, they'll say that. And then a couple guys came in, they're gonna go testify. And I said, where are you coming from? And they're like, this spot here. And I'm like, how is it? They're like, it's great. There's 3-day visits, the food's good, I'm like, there's 3-day visits? He's like, yeah, you should try to make it out there, whatever. I'm like, I know where I want to go.
I'm so happy with our 3-day visits.
And after that, just kind of settled in, and I did the rest of my time there, and it helped. We had 3-day visits. Also, we would have Saturday, Sunday for the kids. After we'll switch it, but Mondays,
it was date night.
It was date night for us.
Sure.
And it was a lot relaxed too, where I got to play with the kids when they were smaller. Like, they had a carpet where I could wrestle with them on the floor and just play with them, sit down, and I'm right next to the garden. They appreciate it. They like to see you with your kids.
Where was that?
That I can't say. It was it was like one of those, like, you always look at the positives of bad moments.
It was Club Med. It was one of them easy stays right there. Well, there you go. All of that bitching, all that ratting, trying to get your brother sent to New York MCU, you ended up in a good spot to do your time. What you complaining about?
And for sure that became a positive, but still, it was the beginning of me not having my brother.
As Jay mentioned, the twins aren't always allowed to say where they were in prison. Some of the locations are highly confidential. When Jay first was taken from his brother, Pete was left with an empty bed next to him.
What was it like when you both got separated? How hard did you find that?
It was super difficult for us, It felt like it was hard for us to be together sometimes because we would clash a lot.
How y'all are now?
Hard, just in the rawness of our relationship, where he's still my brother,
Listen, all that time, through all of it, at the end of the day, through all of it, through the kidnappings, through the weddings, through the being on the run, through the going to the joint, through the cooperating, through all of it, y'all dude been each other's security blanket, tethered to each other. The times you've been apart have been times of bad times, like kidnappings and shit like that. Y'all was each other's crutch the whole time. Y'all needed that time apart. I don't know how much good it did, because y'all sound like y'all want to scrap right now. 50 should have just cleared the table, got out the way, and let them scrap.
And don't want people to get it like misunderstood. I think my brother and I are always like been each other's protector. And it was super difficult to not be with him, you know?
What was it like that first morning when you realised that he'd been taken and that was it, you weren't going to be together?
That day, they'd take me, it was like 3, 4 in the morning, and they locked my cell back door, and I look, and I'm like, they're probably taking him to the shoot and go back to sleep. And I was, woke up like around 7:30, and the other constable comes in, throws me a garbage bag and says, throw all your brother's shit in there. I'm like, and where's my brother? So when I get up to go call him, they took my brother, the phones are off. For security reasons, they shut the phones off. So I'm like,
they're in transit. They're in transit. They don't need nobody knowing where they're going.
I'm like, damn, never seen him shut the phones off. And he was gone. It was hard to think that everything they had to go through was difficult. I mean, just thinking they were there now, and had to get used to like not having like my twin brother. We do everything together. We made it that far together, and there was so much left to do in our case. And it was hard because we were about to go through one of the hardest situations we've gone through in prison. And we needed each other. It was very hard.
Because up until then, you'd always had that opportunity to be together, and you'd always
you know what? For a long time,
made decisions together since you were born. Like, it wasn't just adults, it was like since you were born.
Yeah, that was hard because my brother and I have always had that mentality that we'd figure out a way, find a way. And I think at first it was sad. Of course, it was hurtful to think that my brother wasn't there when I first realized that he wasn't there with me no more. But in a weird way, I feel like we're going to find a way to get back together.
Felt like
it's
a relief.
My
Get your
mentality
ass away from me.
Of course, it was hurtful to think that my brother wasn't there when I first realized that he wasn't there with me no more. But in a weird way, I feel like we're going to find a way to get back together. It's my mentality at that time. We're still a couple months into prison. I was like, yeah, we're going to take care of this, I remember the person in charge of our units. I remember he had a visit. He came to me, he tells me, yeah, I just want you to know something. You don't run this shit. I do.
He didn't have a vision. He had a moment when he heard what kind of hustling honcho you are, and his ego took a hit, so he had to come and make sure you knew who was boss. It's just a simple power play. He had no vision.
I was like, all right, okay, you're right. But, to have them kind of like people over you in that situation, they wanted to keep reminding you that they had control over your life. And they would be inappropriate about, at times, or, things they would say about my personal issues and the things they heard over the phone or stuff like that. And it kind of bothered me. Like, that was like something I can't get used to, that you'll never get used to. But like thinking that I was going to be able to find a way to be with my brother was always like fresh in my mind. I could only hear from him through Viviana, and it was like another burden for her, I think, to put that on her to like, hey, on top of taking care of kids and everything you do, make sure you know everything about my brother.
When it was discovered that it was actually Pete who put up the billboards and not Jay, Pete was disciplined.
So I got a couple of disciplinary write-ups for like endangering the safety of the staff and other inmates, for reaching out to the public, for all kinds of stuff.
What'd they take from you?
They took my phone and my visit.
And then it was Pete's turn to be transferred. Putting the billboards out there meant there was a risk that his location had been compromised.
It was just a stressful time because, I ended up being transferred to the worst place that you could be at. I mean, it was just a miserable place. Everyone there was miserable.
So there you go, Jay. You happy now, Jay? You know what I'm saying? You happy now? Your brother Peter put up the billboards, right? You got in trouble for it and got sent to New York. You went to New York and you was like, it wasn't me. Peter did it, right? But then you got to pick the joint that you went to. You went to a nice joint with 3-day visits and baseball on the front lawn. Meanwhile, Peter, who you thought got away with it, didn't get no punishment. He ended up going to the worst joint that you could send him to. So there you go. He's back in the shit. You're back in your position. You know, the position of the brother that seems to always be in the sunlight when the shit goes down.
It's always cold. They're all steel walls, and you had a stainless steel toilet, and you're allowed to wreck 3 times a week, if that. Or shower or wreck, one or the other. Which one do you want?
What's it called? Rack?
Rec.
Rec.
Recreation.
Oh, recreation.
So you get to go out in the patio or something for 30 minutes or whatever.
3 times a week?
3 times a week. And you're allowed 1 phone call after a month. You're allowed 1 phone call.
Shit.
And it's cold, it's lonely, cement blocks, you know, cement. It's a mattress on a cement.
What's it smell like?
You'd be surprised that prisons are clean. The first thing you do when you go into the shoe, you get soap and you clean everything down. You actually clean supply and you just try to disinfect the whole cell, you know?
You clean it yourself?
Yeah, you're on your knees and scrubbing and you lather up soap and you clean the toilet and everything you're gonna use.
It's your shit.
And it gets cold sometimes. So you try to find ways to hold on to clothes, you know? To hold on to extra socks, or like on laundry day, you just try to keep them even if you wash them in the sink, because you're gonna need them. And I would write letters, and then you get this, they give you this stupid little pencil, and you have to figure out a way to sharpen it yourself, because they're not gonna be sharpening your pencil every time. It needs to be sharpened, and I would write letters, and I would be asking everyone, okay, let me get your pencil, man. So I can, have it, something to write with. And I'll read and read and read, or exercise, and the time goes by so slow.
This jail, y'all giving me a
extremely slow. Especially in the beginning, And then you start to kind of get used to that little routine. My loneliness will get the best of me. I'm quick to talk to someone hey, what are you doing over there?
What are you doing over there? Quick to talk.
Whatever, play chess.
What, through the wall?
Yeah, you yell out your move, you make a chessboard, and you set up. You literally will make a chessboard out of pieces of paper, and you draw your little, or write knight on it, or rook, or and you'll yell B1 to B3, and wait for their move. And then when they make their move, you make the move on the board for them, on your own board. They have their own board.
They was running out of story. Well, I guess this is for
and you hear keys.
People that never saw
the first thing you do is go to the door to see what's going on. Wait for chow, for that styrofoam plate that comes, and you're let me see what they done this time. And we had that routine where Mondays was chili mac for lunch. Tuesdays was chicken patty day or something. Wednesday was burgers. Thursday was chicken. The best meal of the week was Thursday. And Friday was fish. That's the routine.
Got the good food.
So did you know what each day was? Is that how you kept track of the days?
Yeah, you kind of keep that track of the day. You make these homemade calendars. And
not homemade.
if you're lucky, and people in the kitchen, they'll give you an extra heavy plate. And what you have to do, you have to put the food to the side. So you're gonna eat a little bit of it and save some for later, because you're gonna be hungry. And because the portions are usually small, so when they give you extra food, you gotta save it. Because sometimes the dinner would be a couple slices of bread some cheese or peanut butter and jelly. I never drank milk like that in prison. I started drinking milk because it was just like I needed food, you know? You try to save as much fruit as you can.
I bet you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, I think I was like 140 pounds, 135, all muscle. Yeah, but yeah, you do. I mean, you work out, you try to keep your mind, your routine. You work out. If you have someone like a good neighbor, like you work out together. And if we do burpees. But it's hard. It's sad. Sometimes
it's jail.
Hold the tears back.
Now, understand this. That experience that he's complaining about, a lot of people, most of the people don't get it coming from the amount of money that you was coming from. You know what I'm saying? Most people ain't got a dime to their name, ain't had a dime in 2 or 3 generations, and they still in that hellhole. So, I'm sure there's a big sector of the population that ain't got no sympathy for your sad story.
Miserable. Thinking about my kids, about seeing my wife leave the visit, and just wish I could be there with her, It's horrible to go through that. But for me, what helped me was that I was comfortable with who I was. And a lot of people see you and they tend to like measure you up a little bit, And it was like, I didn't care, whatever. That don't affect me. I have a wife and children who depend on me, who are there for me, who make me feel like I'm worth more. Like they see something in me that makes them love me unconditionally. And I felt like I had to live up to it. Like I allowed myself to be worthy of it, to receive it, to receive their love and appreciate it.
This is the therapy episode.
Take it in and it was hard though, because in there you deal with so many people who are broken and they want to value you as how many people you killed or how much money you had. It's like stupid, stupid. I thought about my family, my children, that every single second of my time away from them.
Did somebody slap you in there? Did you have to slap somebody? Tell me something besides your heart was aching and your billboards was crying for each other.
So it could be a heavy burden too, Like where you're stuck in the inside and living on the outside, it's hard. And everybody will tell you, don't do that. But not everyone had a Viviana in their life. But it was hard. It was hard. I mean, I had really, really tough days, And I think every man in prison does. The doors close at night, and you sit there and you think about all the stupid things you've done, how you got there. If you're lucky, you have those thoughts. So I had this thing where when I was in the unit where I was free, where I would call and check up on my wife, and then she would answer and say hi, but not accept the call. I could just hear her say, like, for 1 second. Not even a second, maybe. And that brought me peace. Just hear her say, we're good, babe.
Because you couldn't speak to her?
Because the minutes were limited.
Right,
so in order to save some minutes,
everybody knows that trick.
Do it 10 times.
Well, these young bucks don't know that trick because I don't know how collect calls work anymore. I don't know if they exist anymore, but when they be like, say your name, and you try to get the whole sentence out in that little bit of time.
Times a day, and they would like get on my ass about it. I was like, whatever. Like, I just needed to know that they were okay.
Because you couldn't speak to her?
Because the minutes were limited.
Right,
so in order to save some minutes, I would do it. Sometimes I would do it 10 times a day, and they would like get on my ass about it. I was like, whatever. Like, I
10
just want to
times
get
a
to
day.
know that they were okay.
10 times a day, dog. 10 times a day. That's crazy. They sound mad insecure, like they needed to know where their woman was. What are you doing? I'm telling you. Type of dudes that get cameras in the crib and just watch from work and shit all day.
And just even that one hi.
Like if she just said, I love you, babe. I'm missing you. That would just, like, to just feel some connection.
Probably do a fit if she did it 9
I got my minutes
instead of
on
10.
the 4th of every month. And that day to us was like, happy minute day. Like, we could talk. And I wish I could tell you there was nothing going on during the month, but there was always something going on that made me like go through those minutes faster. And we would literally like write each other 18-page letters during the week and then see each other on the weekend.
I guess I ain't never had that kind of
even
love,
then,
y'all. I ain't never been that, shit. These motherfuckers. Billboards and letters and minutes and 10 phony collect calls a day. Like, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
were we able to share with each other everything that was really going on?
Opposite ends of the country, in the same thing. Inside the prison walls, Pete and Jay were isolated and lonely. Outside the prison walls, their wives, Val and Viv, were facing the same thing. Every time the twins transferred prisons, the families had to move too. Val and Viv were not only separated from their husbands, but now also from each other, on opposite ends of the country. And even though they were in the US, the cartel has people everywhere. El Chapo is not known for his forgiveness, so anyone connected to the brothers had a huge target on their backs.
When we first came back from Mexico, we came to the United States, I knew what kind of life I was going to have to live. I would never even put my name on an email account, my real name. I mean, I was always hyper aware of if I was going to do something, I always thought in the back of my mind, like, okay, can somebody find me? Can somebody find myself and my children? So any little step I made, like my bills or an email.
It doesn't seem like it would have been that hard for them to be found. It's like, I don't even feel like y'all took the, crazy measures to not be found. You know what I'm saying? You came home, you turned down the witness protection. Like, I don't know if they was really looking if they didn't catch you.
Like little simple things. I always had that in the back of my mind. That, eventually somebody would find me if I were to slip up. But it wasn't hard for me. I moved around so many places and I lived in small towns and I kept to myself. I mean, through the years, I didn't, acquire not one friend. And if a mom at the school was asking me too many questions or I seen them being a little too nosy, like I would just back off and I wouldn't allow my kids to have play dates with them any longer because I felt uncomfortable. I felt like if somebody was gonna know anything about myself or my kids, that we'd be in more danger than we already were. Me, out of everyone, I was the one very, very always careful. Always careful. And he never let anyone get close to me.
I'm telling you, a lot of this we're gonna do Cartel Wives. We're gonna do the audiobook for Cartel Wives. But as far as backbone, you gotta give it to Val for being the backbone of everybody. The twins, Vivi, everybody, like, you know what I'm saying? When there was no plan and there was no way and everybody was frozen and everybody was crying, she went about her business and handled that. Same shit here, stayed on it. I mean, as much as she could. I'm not saying she's a saint. I'm just saying that as far as the backbone of this situation now, could she have been in in the twins' shoes and still held on, it's like, shit, it's probably easier for them on the inside than it is for her on the outside. They don't got no extra bodies and kids and shit to take care of and people to drag around. They get told what to do instead of having to figure it out the way she did. You know what I'm saying? So she, as far as backbone, she was the backbone of this operation.
When I moved into like smaller towns, I made sure that my neighbors wouldn't ask me questions. And if they did, I would be like, oh, I'm just a single mom. It was lonely. It was definitely lonely because I've always been around people. I have a big family. I've always, had friends growing up, and I lived a normal life. I felt like it was either me have, lived a normal life that I wanted or protect my kids. That wasn't even an option. I was going to do whatever I had to do to protect them.
I do live a life that's very different from anybody in this world. We have to make sure that we're safe, and we have to keep our children out of harm's way. So there's a lot of things that we're accustomed to. Today, I use a prepaid phone because I'm trying to elude private investigators from finding me and tracking me down for the cartel. I feel like I've always said that me and Jay are really strong and that we can get through anything, that we've probably been through so much. And I feel like, we're unbreakable. I feel like we can withstand more than your average probably couple could. But when it comes to like your children, it's like you have this special place in your heart for them. You never want to see them go through anything. You just want to be protective and you just want to shelter them from that. So it's really hard for them. I just felt like our kids are not built for this. Over the years, I've sheltered them so much and put them in this bubble that I just wanted to keep them insulated from this world.
Good luck with that.
They don't know, or they didn't know any of this before. They didn't even know their father's real name because I didn't want them to Google him. Or if I knew there was this special coming out on television about their dad, I would take the cable out and act like something was going on with the cable box because I didn't want them to see their dad on television. And so there was all these precautions that I made, and they literally thought that their dad was in prison for tax evasion because I didn't want them to know. It was really hard for them to see Jay like that.
Yeah,
and
how
I
long
feel like
did you
it
hide
was
that though?
Maybe
how long can you, from a child, yeah, but kids ain't stupid. Things will start adding up for them. The internet come along. You can't hide it forever. A couple years maybe at most.
And they literally thought that their dad was in prison for tax evasion because I didn't want them to know. It was really hard for them to see Jay like that. And I feel like it was maybe in the beginning when they were still babies, it was a lot easier for them because they were so young and they didn't know any better. And they honestly thought that that was kind of their normalcy to be visiting their father every weekend in prison.
3-day weekends.
And it wasn't until they got older that they started realizing that he's in jail, he's in prison. He's not coming home.
14
The
years.
brothers also had to be careful with who they interacted with. In prison, you never knew who you might bump into.
Here I am, transferred to a new prison, and I get put in a cell. I was supposed to be alone, and then they came oh, you're gonna have a cellie. Make room.
Oh, that's
He should be here any minute. When he gets there, I look, I'm like, oh my God, I know you. Here I am with Chapo's biggest rival.
Chapo's biggest rival. JP, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get a Sammy the Bull run in here. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be surprised Sammy the Bull, who inspired this betrayal or this escape route, if we don't get a cameo appearance by Sammy the Bull. But for now, it's whoever Chapo's enemy is. That was the sob story episode. It was basically jail was hard episode. Being apart from my brother was hard episode. Being apart from my woman was hard episode. I'm gonna tell the feds my brother was the one that did the billboard so that they could move him here. That would have really kicked him in his ass. Had Jay would have convinced them, hey man, it was my brother that did the billboards, and then they'd have switched them out. They'd have brought Peter to New York, and they'd have brought Jay to wherever he was at. What would have happened was Peter would have got the good days. He would have got the good 3-day weekend, 3-day visit joint, and Jay would have shot himself in the foot. So yeah, that was basically a throwaway sob story. There's rats in the food in prison. The feds are salty about our billboard episode. But the teaser that they set up is that Chapo's enemy is now his celly. Now he can really sell some information. I hope not, because at one point are you worthless because you just talk too much. So that's it. That's episode 3. They missed each other. Jail sucked. They were separated. So they're a couple months in by now. They did 14 years in a joint. I don't know if they were separated that whole 14 years. I'm willing to bet that they were going to separate them anyway. That billboard shit was probably just an excuse to do what they were already going to do anyway. We want what we want. You guys work for us now. You're going to do what you got to do.